Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Entertainment Expansion. We are your hosts, Tyler Callahan and Mike Ferrante. Mike, how you doing this week?
Well, Tyler, I'm honestly a lot better this week now that we've knocked out that platinum of Resident Evil 5, at least in my books. If you guys haven't checked that out, go to our YouTube channel. It is an exclusive on YouTube, how to run through the professional run for Resident Evil 5. But this week, we are finally talking about a current relevant movie of 2020. Of course, we are talking about the Hulu exclusive Palm Springs, starring Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti.
Yep, that's right. If you count each Resident Evil stream as like its own mini episode, this is episode 5 this week. We've been knocking out content, so yeah, definitely check that out. But we have a movie that's come out in 2020 that we have both watched that has been good, and we can talk about it. I would say the best way to put this movie is, yes, it is a Groundhog Day type of movie, but I would say without spoilers, which we'll talk about later, it's Groundhog Day with a twist. With the twist being people can join you in the Groundhog Day. So it's not just like Bill Murray, for example, went through by himself day after day after day. In this one, depending on what happens, you can add people to relive the same day over and over again, and they are aware of it as well. That
And
leaves,
also
yeah,
throughout your experiences through the multiverse of your Groundhog Day. Now, unfortunately, we cannot really divulge into our experience with this movie without giving spoilers. So if you want to watch this movie spoiler free, skip past this episode, come back at a later date, and listen to us talk about it then. If you don't care about the spoilers and you want to know how we feel about it, continue listening. But we do have to discuss the spoilers in order to relay our message about this movie.
yeah, I think that's fair to say. So I guess I'll just start off with my thoughts. I went I went into this blind. I saw no trailers, no commercials, nothing. All I knew was Groundhog Day with the main stars, and then obviously J.K. Simmons thrown in there as well. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that the film was great, and one thing that stood out to me was the first 20 minutes of the movie. The first 20 minutes of the movie stands out to me because you're just thrown into the situation. You're thrown into the situation through Andy Samberg's perspective. And then toward the end of the first day, right, you think it's the initial day, you get the other character, Kristen's character, and you notice that Andy Samberg seems off. And then
The
you get the twist that Andy Samberg has already relived this day many, many times,
yes,
which I thought was great. And then obviously he accidentally gets her brought into as well. And let's just say, she's not too happy about it. So it's good that unlike other movies where you have to go through the first experience with them, you have an experienced person, such as Andy Samberg's character, telling her, well, you can do this, you can't do that. And it's just like it speeds that process up, and it's entertaining as well.
yes.
I don't know what you thought about the how they set up the situation they were in.
So to piggyback it, the one thing I will say is, your experience, because, I learned about this movie through you, obviously, Tyler Callahan, and it was like a Groundhog Day thing. So I'm I'm going to learn about how Andy Samberg gets trapped in this time loop. You never learn that at all. You never know how Andy Samberg gets tied into this, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the plot of this movie. The thing that really tickles my peaches is that when Niles, Andy Samberg's character, and Sarah, Kristen Milioti's character, are about to get it on after he's been, kind of hitting the nail on the head to win her affection, he gets shot in the shoulder with an arrow. she's freaking out. She's like, "What the fuck is? Oh, it's Roy! It's that son of a bitch!" And he starts running, and J.K. Simmons is Roy, and he shoots him in the leg. He's like, "Roy, you're a sick fuck, you know that," and just keeps running like it's all a part of the plan. And then that's when you realize he's been through this before, and the movie is extremely entertaining to watch. It's
Yeah.
a lot of fun. It's a modern take on Groundhog Day with our societal reflections into it. If you really want to think about it, because, when Groundhog Day came out, let's be serious, premarital sex wasn't really that talked about in movies. It was only a thing that you saw in horror movies when teens were going to die. And because they died because they had premarital sex. This was the kind of switch from that. It was a modern take on it, which I really did enjoy. It was a fun story to watch, and as the movie continued, you learned more and more about the characters and why Andy Samberg was more comfortable staying in the same day every day for the rest of his life, and why Kristen Milioti was not. And that was a twist that they, spoiler ahead here, they hinted to. Because when Peter Gallagher, who plays Howard, Sarah, aka Kristen Milioti's father, said he went to go check on her room, she wasn't there, so she must have been out of bed early because he checked on her at 6 a.m. Plot twist, she was in another man's room. Who? Her sister's fiance who was getting married the next day, which is why she was eager to get out of that time loop because it only made her feel worse and worse. So you really do have some serious character development throughout this movie. Plus, a very compelling storyline to keep you interested and connected through without the entire film.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up well. I mean, for a movie that initially starts pretty goofy, while still funny throughout, there is definitely some solid character development, at least for Sarah's character. And Niles also gets some decent character development, but he's the for the most part up to the end, he's very nihilistic. It's like doesn't matter, just whatever.
Yeah.
And even J.K. Simmons had a nice character progression. First, I don't know, a couple dozen, hundred
Kind of.
times he's in it, he is in a rage.
Well, oh, I gotta cut you off there. I
What?
wouldn't say a couple hundred dozen times he's in a rage. Throughout the movie, you only see Roy before his character development 2 to 3 times at most.
Well, I mean, like in the overall period, he's actually been in it. Yes, we only see him in two or three different encounters.
Correct. But we'll talk about the rumors and the conspiracies throughout this movie shortly after.
But yeah, the fact that the one time, I guess you could say he was beaten, and it wasn't even from Niles, it was from Sarah. That's when he finally mellowed out and just took it in for what it was and appreciated his family. I thought even that was nice development. He gave up hunting down Niles to punish him. There's no point, you know.
Which I also love that scene.
Oh, that was a great introduction to the character. You don't know anything about him. The movie's been on for what 10, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden you think you're
Oh,
about to see you know a sex scene or something on the rocks, so it's not going to be comfortable, and then boom, J.K. Simmons out of nowhere, paint on, he's got bow and arrow. It's like, what the fuck?
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about when Andy Samberg was done. He felt as much emotional pain as he possibly could because he truly found the love of his life, Sarah, and realized that, she was the one. He brought her into this life. They
Mm-hmm.
got closer and closer. They fell in love. And when she disappeared on him, he was just search for her, search for her, search for her. Couldn't find her. He went to Roy's house, aka J.K. Simmons, and was like, "All right, dude, let's just get over with. Just kill me." J.K. Simmons was like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing here? Why are you here?" Brings it to his backyard. They have a beer, and J.K. Simmons opens up tells him that, listen, ever since that crazy bitch hit me with her car and I spent, 3 weeks in the hospital without being able to fall asleep, because when you fall asleep, your day gets reset. And
Pain is real.
Pain is real in this universe. So if you don't fall asleep, you do feel all the excruciating pain that you deal with throughout your human body until you fall asleep. Then Andy Samberg corrects him like, "Yo, don't call her that." And that's when J.K. Simmons figures out, listen, she's your vice. She's what you need to cling to. It's like, listen, like I've had a lot of regrets because of this, that I followed you into that cave, but at the end of the day, this is a great day. My son is fucking watering dog shit, which is a real thing. He's like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing, but it's beautiful. My daughter later on is gonna paint a picture, and I'm gonna be a grizzly bear, Papa Grizzly Bear. Yeah, I'm never gonna be able to walk her down the aisle ever, but my wife is in her prime. I'm a happy father, and my two beautiful children are healthy and don't know anything wrong in the world. So I've learned to appreciate this day. And he's like, but I think it's time for doing it. And Sandberg's like, well, could you just kill me for, old time's sake, and so I can beat the traffic on the way home? And he's like, all right, yeah, fine, let's go to the side yard. And he shoots him in the fucking heart with an arrow in a recycling bin.
I mean, did he need to clean up?
But once again, like, it's this movie being cheeky, but very emotional at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely had a great time watching it. I mean, I guess going into some negatives, I do have a few things. One, I'm just gonna have to rewatch this scene again because I may be off about this, but J.K. Simmons for most of the movie is regular J.K. Simmons with the like the light gray beard, stuff like that. But when he shows up as the state trooper, as the cop, he has. I swear to God, it looked like that was all gone, but he had like a dark mustache, and that threw me off because every day is the same day. So that would mean in one day, he shaved off the beard, grew a mustache, and then found them. If I'm getting that correctly. But like I said, I'm gonna have to rewatch that scene again because he does not have a dark mustache throughout the entire movie, but it looked like he had one for that scene. Now he's only in that scene again for 2 minutes because as soon as he tries to arrest, obviously Niles, he gets run over by a car. So another thing I had is I kind of felt the ending was a bit rushed. The ending, I thought how they got out of the loop was fine, but the third act was, besides the interaction between J.K. Simmons and Andy Samberg you mentioned, I felt was the weakest part of the movie. They show a montage of Niles panically looking around the entire resort for her, checking everywhere. But what they show her doing is she just gets up. As soon as she gets up, she leaves to the diner and studies and studies and studies. You're telling me not one time, she accidentally bumps into him. He doesn't see the car driving out somewhere. Not one time. Because you're kind of made to assume that she somehow got out. She's not there in the room. She's not there in the room. She's not there at the house they stay at. She's not in the bar. But the fact that it's like, oh no, she just went to a diner they haven't been to yet. That's kind of anticlimactic. You're at a resort. There's only so many places you can go before you get in the car. So, and I feel his change of heart toward the end was also a little rushed. If that could have been developed more over the third act, I think would have been better. But I mean, I still think the movie's great overall. But there was a couple issues I had. Did you have any issues with the movie?
So, going off of your issues, Tyler,
Yeah.
I gotta be honest. The few issues I have with this movie, and there's really not many, surprisingly. I didn't go into this movie thinking that I was really gonna like it as much as I did, but I am curious. How the fuck did Andy Samberg find this cave and get lured into this void of space-time continuum, this Groundhog Day, this repeating event? And not only that, how the fuck did the grandma find this shit out?
I think Andy's pretty easy. Assuming he already did not give a shit about the wedding or their relationship because his girlfriend was cheating on him, and assuming he actually, no, actually, no. I was gonna say,
Just wandered into the cave.
No, I was gonna say because he already was wearing the Hawaiian stuff, but then I realized the early scenes he was in the suit. So honestly, I think he just got drunk, got angry, just walked around, and they showed during the day the earthquake causes the cave to open up. So I think he just walked around drunk and found a cave. Like that looks interesting. The
But
grandma definitely has me curious,
like, did Andy Samberg somehow find out that the grandma was gonna die shortly after that?
and
Because
then puts her in there.
how would he know? He never lived past that day. Or maybe he was like, "Hey, are you?" Maybe she was the first person that he brought into the cave because he was like, "Hey, like, listen, is this the happiest day of your life? Because I can make this day last forever, and you could repeat this day for the rest of your life."
Yeah, pulled the same move on J.K. Simmons. He didn't take it well.
Yeah, well, the grandma did. The grandma was definitely older, and she
Yeah,
lived
grandma
all her
enjoyed
life.
it.
And the grandma seemed to be very happy with it.
Mm-hmm. And was even okay with them leaving too. Like she
Correct.
understands.
That's what fucking blew my fucking load in a heartbeat when she was like, "Yeah, well, you're gonna be getting out of here soon." So I was like, "What? What?"
And I think it's stuff like that though that like kind of blows your mind at the end. But then now on rewatches, when she first comes up to him after he gives that great wedding speech about love and all that, and she's
You
honestly
know,
giving him a compliment, you think, oh wow, she believed the bullshit. But it's like, no, assuming she's been in there almost as long as he has, she has seen dozens of wedding speeches from him, and this is the best one. You know,
potentially, yeah.
like
And he doesn't know it because he doesn't remember it because the
yeah.
theory, how we're getting to the theories that I have read into is that he has participated in that day for 40 years.
And how are they adding up to 40 years?
40 years, I don't know. That's just what I read.
I'm gonna have to look it up because yeah, obviously he's been in there a long time, but 40 years, I don't know.
Well, I mean, how long does it take you to forget what your job was?
That's true.
You know what I
He
mean?
forgot what his profession was.
I
You know.
could tell you, I'm 25 years old right now. I could tell you what I did when I was working when I was 15. That was 10 years ago. I can remember that.
Yeah.
When
What if
you're
you're
doing
50?
and you're not doing it for years and years and years and years, just living the same day over and over and over and over and over again.
I guess that's true because you have to think like he doesn't forget what happened in these days. Like as they do memorable stuff, that is the stuff they remember going into the next day. So while they don't move forward, now you have weeks and weeks and weeks of new events on the same day. It makes sense that the older thoughts disappear.
Correct. And when we were just following the main characters, Sarah and Miles, we don't even know the exact time that it took them.
I
Because the exact
assume it was a
time,
few weeks, but could be longer.
correct, correct. We saw at least 3 weeks. At least.
Yeah, you have at least 3 weeks, and that's just those two together. You didn't have how many weeks, how many months J.K. Simmons was in there, Niles was
And
in there, the grandma.
he said Roy, J.K. Simmons shows up every few weeks.
hmm Every few weeks. So by the time she joins the party, it's like, no, Roy's established, and Roy's come after him a few times.
A plethora of times. Because he's mentioned many times where Roy has killed him in different ways. And we've seen it.
hmm
Roy killing him different ways, burning him alive, blowing him up. And if he only comes around every few weeks, Roy's been killing him for a few years.
Yeah, it does make me wonder though. In between those few weeks, does he like come up with ways? Like he tries to enjoy time with his family, but on the side, like he tries to come up with a plan over a few days and then enacts it. Like, I'm going to set him on fire. How do I set him on fire? What do I need on the drive down? Because you have to do it in one day.
And what was Roy doing? Because Roy only has a couple hours.
That's true. Because he drives up from up north of California. So basically, as soon as he has the plan, as soon as he wakes up, he needs to book it, get the supplies, and get there by the afternoon. If he takes his time, he's there at night during the reception.
Correct.
So, yeah, depending on how fast he drives, he can be there in the afternoon or he can be there at night. So it really depends on when he wants to kill him. But yeah, the day he decides to do it, he can't mess around.
Correct. But let's also talk about some underlying things about this film. The cinematography was actually quite good.
Yeah, I noticed that definitely during the montages where they're passing the time and stuff, and that's where it was a standout to me. And then during the montage for J.K. Simmons killing Niles, those montages were really good. Um, but overall, I thought cinematography was good. There was a couple good shots. But I would say the montages where it's like, okay, that's really good, like how it's put together,
Oh, of course, but I mean
along with good editing, of course.
for a Hulu original film,
I
it
mean,
by far exceeded my expectations.
you say Hulu original film, and it is a Hulu film. Um, this has to be mentioned that this was a Sundance movie to begin with. This premiered at
Yeah,
Sundance this year, was bought by Hulu and Neon for a record-breaking 17 million at Sundance. So they paid a pretty penny. And Neon, if you've heard of them, they are the U.S. distributor for Parasite. The best picture of Oscar for this year. So they know how to pick them. They got Hulu to jump in. Now, I kind of feel bad for Neon on this. It was supposed to release in theaters for a little wider release with Neon. So I would assume they got compensated on the back end because it's just known as a Hulu movie. But yeah, it is what it is. But even then, it's like, yeah, it's not like Hulu made the movie, but they, they got a good pick with this one. You can see why they spent the money, and it's only been the first weekend, but they said the total hours watching this movie opening weekend is way bigger than any movie they've had premiered on the service yet. So
which is not surprising me because this
it's not.
actually is a very good movie.
Yeah.
Now, it may not be a box office movie because unfortunately there is no box office for it, but I don't know about you, Tyler. Would you say this movie is better or worse than Bad Boys for Life,
Oh,
the highest grossing box office movie of 2020 so far?
you mean potentially Oscar nominated Bad Boys for Life?
Yeah.
God, the Oscars are gonna suck next year.
Honestly, I think Hollywood is going to extend the coronavirus just so the Oscars won't happen. And we'll just do a 2020 and a 2021 year mix up.
Well, they've already done one push. The Oscars will not be in March. Sorry, they won't be in February. They'll be in March. And now instead of the end of December, I think the first 2 weeks of January, if you squeeze in a limited release, you'll count. So they're already slowly pushing the deadline a little further. I mean, I don't know what they have to worry about. You have Onward for Best Animated Picture. You have Sonic for Best Direction and Bad Boys for Best Picture. What's the issue here? Jim Carrey for Best Actor. Like,
Uh,
come on.
there's a lot of issues there. The fact
I
that you said Sonic for best director,
I don't know, man.
Bad
You know,
Boys for best picture, like
I'm just
nah,
naming movies that actually premiered in the theater. We're running out of options.
yeah. Considering we had about 10 movies premiered in theaters since this happened.
Well, it's also a good thing they did change the rule. The rule that's kind of famously kept Netflix a bit suppressed because they had to do a theatrical release. At least for this year, even if you premiere on streaming, you'll still count. So who knows? Um, I don't know how the Oscars would view Palm Springs, but I could. I mean, obviously we have to see how the rest of the year goes, but I wouldn't be surprised if Palm Springs gets an Oscar nominee or two. I don't think they'll win anything, but
Yeah. I
I think they get a
mean,
nominee or two.
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I don't see it for being best original screenplay because it's not original.
It's not, yeah.
Uh, best acting,
I,
definitely
I,
not.
I mean, I would say for Andy, it's the best acting he has done ever.
Don't
I don't know if that equates to a nominee, but
don't you dare! Hot Rod was a diamond.
no, I've never seen Hot Rod, so I wouldn't know.
Do not. Hot Rod was the greatest movie he has ever fucking done. I'm
Okay.
sorry I got so heated about this, but no. It's fucking hot rod.
All right. Well,
But yeah, this movie normally shouldn't get any recognition in the Oscars.
that's true.
But is it a good movie to watch and a good movie to roll? Absolutely.
92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics love it.
I would recommend this movie to my blind, dumb, deaf aunt.
I'd recommend it to just about anyone, honestly, because even it's like it's technically a romantic comedy. Don't go into this expecting it because honestly, the romantic part doesn't happen until like almost halfway through.
Yeah, it's
So
about half. That
yeah,
is the issue I do have with the movie.
that it's not really a romantic comedy.
No, the fact where he's like, yeah, well, like when he's getting complacent, he's like, listen, I just want to live the rest of my life, which is forever, with you in this day. Because if you really truly love someone and she figured out a way to get you out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a chance to live life with her throughout or after this day, or die with her. If you truly love that person, you're gonna take it. And Andy Samberg wasn't about it the first time. He's like, yeah, well, we could just be dead and like nothing happens. But we could just, it's not so bad just living the same day together for the rest of our lives.
No, I get it. From his point of view, I get it. Let's assume the theories are right. He's been in there for a few years. This is all he knows. He now has a girl he loves he can share it with. If they succeed,
Yeah,
there is now a chance the relationship could fall apart and they go their separate ways. Wouldn't be good for him in the short term. Long term, if they fuck up, well, cool, now he's dead. Which you could say is better than
yeah.
reliving the same day over and over. But you're right, he was being a coward and he was taking the safe bet. But that's kind of my issue I mentioned earlier. Is like that point should have been done earlier on in the third act, so that there's more time for that growth. So when he makes a switch at the end, it's all good.
And it's not rushed because
Yeah,
he makes a complete 180 at the end.
in like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, he is switched. He's ready to go.
And she brings up, she's like, well, what if we get sick of each other? He's like, we're already sick of each other. And it's great. And it's like, well, if you already had these feelings, why weren't you on board with this to begin with? Now, granted, you can go into the whole, I'm forgetting the actual scientific term of it, but when you watch Shawshank Redemption, institutionalism, where that one inmate was in prison for the majority of his life, he leaves prison, he finally gets on parole, he works a job, and he ends up just not knowing how to cope with the reality that he was projected into, and he kills himself. That could be where the character development for Andy Samberg was going.
Mm-hmm. Like he doesn't know how to do anything else. Like
Correct, because he forgot his trade, he forgot his line of work, he forgot what he did.
mm-hmm.
He's
Exactly. Like
having the money he has on him, spending it whenever, and just having a refill of that money, refill of that day, refill of that time, never growing old.
you expect the guy going over the same day for let's say 4 or 5 years. Next day, all right, like he gets out of it. Cool. You finish up the weekend. Well, now you have to go back to your hometown. Now you have to, try and work out this dating thing with her. You got to go back to your job. How do you even work your job? How much money do you have in your bank account? Because you can't just piss it all away whenever you want.
But now we're going back. You said 4 to 5 years. It's been
But
longer than that.
well, the thing we don't know. We got to find out. I
We
mean, it'd be great if
we do have a rough estimate.
it's been a long ass time.
Andy Samberg did mention, because she was asking him how many women has he slept with throughout it, and you had the whole joke, yeah, and your dad,
Mm-hmm.
that whole joke. But he did slip up to her that one time that we've slept together thousands of times.
That's true.
Thousands of times. How many days are in a year, Tyler?
365.
Correct. And we also know about separate incidents where he slept with the bartender a few times. He slept with the guy one time.
And who's to say that's not a couple hundred times? At
Correct.
least. Yeah.
But for a fact, he has been there for more than 6 years.
Okay. Well, hopefully the director clears this up. Getting a straight answer from the people on the movie would be great. But
Yeah. overall, this movie was definitely a good watch. It really makes you think, and not think as in what the fuck did I just watch? Like, Venice or Dennis Villeneuve's film Enemy makes you think. This really makes you think logically and like,
Yeah,
oof.
definitely worth a watch. If anyone has actually seen Palm Springs by the time this is out, where can they let us know about it?
Well, as always, they can let us know via our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, which you can always find us under as Entertainment Expansion. And feel free to look up our YouTube channel. We now have some gaming stuff out there. We plan to put more content on our YouTube that will be exclusively to YouTube. Unfortunately, Spotify doesn't allow us to show video. So, therefore, if you want to know about some gaming things that we've been diving head into, that is your avenue of knowledge.
I will also throw in there for the gaming live streams. It is not just YouTube. Uh, Facebook does have videos up natively, not a link to YouTube. So you have two options for the videos. But as you said, Spotify and podcasts, that's just going to be the regular audio feed. So Facebook and YouTube, if you actually do want to watch streams, preferably YouTube, because when we actually do the live stream, you can watch it live before we make some edits and post it on Facebook. But you do have options. But yeah, definitely give those a watch. We had a great time streaming Resident Evil. At times frustrating.
Oh, yes. But also, going forward, as far as our gaming aspect to our channel, what do you guys want to see us hit next?
Yes.
You guys want to see more of a recent take on Modern Warfare and us in the war zone, us in multiplayer, or do you guys want to see us, mess around in GTA, or how to make easy, fast money in GTA Online, or what are the best bikes, best cars to do some stunt work on? Let us know in the comments below. Direct message us. We are all ears and we are trying to please you guys.
Yes, we'd love to hear your ideas on that so we can push that further. But that'll be it for this week's episode of Entertainment Expansion. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.